Welcome to Feature Fridays. My name is Guy Bartram. I'm Director of Product Marketing for our cloud providers in VMware, and joined again by Jay. Welcome back, Jay.
Hello, Guy. Hello, everyone. My name is Jay Kishan Tayal, and I'm a Senior Technical Product Marketing Architect with the Cloud Infrastructure team. And I basically deal with all of the VCD and Cloud Data Service go-to-market stuff.
Yeah, so again, you're a busy guy. You did a massive update for us last week on 10.5, so thank you very much for that. And what we sort of decided was, because the release was so packed this time, that we'd dive into a few kind of key areas for people. So the first one we're going to do is Content Hub, which is a bit of an evolution of the VMware catalog and ALP. Eventually these are all going to merge into the Content Hub.
In this session, right, we'll have this agenda where I'll explain the old and new architecture, how it was and how it is now. And then the rest of the items you see, we'll do a direct demo, and I'll explain to you as we go how the new Content Hub feature looks like, and what potentially in the future it will be replacing, like Guy mentioned, and how it will help the system administrator or the other administrators to kind of streamline the content and have a centralized management system to manage all the catalog and assets.
Yeah.
So in previous version, right, I mean, I'm sure 99% of us understand that we had the concept of catalog, which basically was a place where we could store our virtual machines, VR templates, and media. Mm-hmm. Now, some of you might ask that, okay, even catalog could also store the content application and the virtual machine applications which we have got from the external sources. Yeah, that's right. But the difference was that previously, in order to import any of the container applications or VM applications through external sources like VMware Marketplace or any Helm chart repository, we had to use an extension plugin called App Launchpad. So all of the configuration of the external sources was happening in the App Launchpad, and then through App Launchpad we used to import the respective application resource and then store them into catalog. So basically, managing the external content was a different task, and managing the regular VM, VApp, and media was a different task. So it was a multitask process wherein you also had to configure App Launchpad, and then we all know or should know by now that App Launchpad, whatever items we import from App Launchpad, right, those items VCD do not have any control over it. We just display those items because App Launchpad, whatever items it imports from the external sources, it maintains them in its own directory or its own database. So in case we lose App Launchpad for some reason, we lose all of the items as well, or all of the metadata of the data as well. So in that case, it was a little tedious to kind of manage things. But I want to make it very clear, it was always a one-time configuration of configuring App Launchpad, configuring the plugin, configuring the external sources, and then kind of publishing it to your tenants. But once the configuration was done, the performance or the integration of VCD and App Launch was flawless. So it worked the way it was supposed to. It is just that now we want to make things more easier and smoother with the introduction of Content Hub.
Yeah, so previously, I mean, I know there was a lot of improvements in catalog sync and stuff like that in previous versions. So the catalog has kind of always been there, the VCD catalog.
Correct.
It's always been bit clunky, if I'm honest. There's always been people complaining about catalog syncs and its inability to do anything with containers.
Right.
So like you said, if you wanted one repo for all your gold images, all your application VApps, and container Helm chart applications, you couldn't do it previously. It was like a bit in here and a bit in here, and then, there wasn't any continuity to it. So this is a really great step forward to see, ALP is not going away, at least not immediately. That's an important point. So we invested time in ALP. It's still going to be there. It is going to, over the next few releases, start gradually being phased into this catalog hub.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was the previous architecture where we had catalogs. in the new architecture, we still have the concept of catalog, but on top of catalogs, we have a new layer called the Content Hub. Okay, so now what all advantages does Content Hub bring into the system? The first thing is that now we can configure and import external resources like your container application and your VM application directly in VCD without the use of App Launchpad. Second, we now structure versioning in a much better way, wherein we now understand that an application which has been imported in various versions, VCD understands that better and structures them in a better way and allows the user to choose the version they want to deploy from. So in that way, it will actually help the look and feel of the items. Plus, it is a better structured and managed way of looking at the content. And the third most important thing is that it's a centralized management for all of the resources in one place. Like previously, it was half in through App Launchpad, half through VCD. But from this version onwards, everything is from within VCD. So if you look at this architecture, right, it's pretty straightforward. We have 3 catalogs in an organization. And let's say catalog dev has a VM template, as a VApp template, and a media template. Whatever items you see in the pink color marking, right, those are the new enhancement. So now let's say, for example, if I import a marketplace VM from the marketplace repository, which is now directly configured in VCD, I have the capability to download multiple versions and maintain the structure. Remember one thing, App Launchpad also supported downloading of multiple versions, but each version was a single entity. But here we see them as one entity, and in the background, we have the multiple entities. In the same way, if I have a container application, which has, let's say, for example, has been imported from the Helm chart repository, that also now we support the structuring of the versioning and maintaining the versioning through a more structured manner. And the rest is like the same. I mean, I can still have my App Launchpad parallelly along with VCD, and they would both work as different entities. They would not clash with each other. Like Guy mentioned, we are not going to end of life App Launchpad very soon, but for sure, gradually we might. So right now, if you are using App Launchpad, you can still continue using it. But again, Content Hub would be the near future.
Yeah, quick question about this. So I'm looking at the kind of the directions of the arrows. Now, I know when ALP first came out, it was a push for receiving the catalog assets that you wanted, and now that presented a whole load of security issues which no one was happy about. Then it became a pull. Yeah. Have we implemented the same methodology into the Content Hubs, these catalog?
Okay. Yeah, so it is still the same method of pull mechanism. The reason why you see 2 arrow marks is right. One arrow mark, one direction is to show the connection. The second arrow mark, which is to show the pull mechanism. So what we have improved in Content Hub, right? Each application which we pull from the repository will have a dedicated subscription. Meaning, previously what used to happen, if I'm not wrong, it was per session based. But now each pull is a separate subscription, which means I'll have a faster sync and download if I have multiple VApps or container applications to be downloaded or synced into my catalog. So that's one enhancement we have made with the Content Hub as well.
Oh, nice. Great.
Okay, so now with Content Hub, we have introduced something called as application images. I will come to that when I straight away take it for the demonstration. So this is the new architecture of Content Hub. Looks very simple and is very robust as well. And those of you who have worked on application Launchpad, right, will understand the interfaces very well, because most of the interface and the experience is almost the same. It's just that now you would do most of the tasks from the VCD page under the Content Hub tab itself. Okay.
And Jay, just to tell me, so some of the aspects of the sync improvements in the VCD catalog, the historical one, they maintained throughout this new development with the Content Hub?
Yes, they do. And also there is an improvement in how the sync happens between the publisher and the subscriber as well, where Previously, the sync used to be a one image at a time, but now we break them into chunks and sync them in parallel for a faster sync time to the subscriber.
Oh, awesome. Sounds good.
Okay, so now let me take you through the demo. For those of you who do not know, it's for you to have a revision. I'll take you through the older lab where how the catalog used to look like real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my lab, which is running an older version of VCD. So if you look here, I have logged in as a system administrator to the provider portal, and there's no option of configuring catalog. So catalog was only a concept at that time as a org user or a system admin via the tenant portal. So now if I log into the tenant portal, if I click on libraries, I'll have the concept of catalogs. So this is where I could create my catalog. Basically, catalog is a container, or rather I would say a boundary where I can store my assets. Assets like VApp template, media, and or VM templates, and my container applications imported via App Launchpad. Now, in the previous version, right, if you had to configure the Helm chart or the VM marketplace, you had to navigate to the App Launchpad plugin, and then you had to configure the marketplace connection and Helm chart. So just for you to understand that these things used to happen in App Launchpad. And App Launchpad is basically a plugin-based extension where you have to expose or publish this extension to the tenants. And based on the items you have published, the tenant would see respective items. So this is how it was in an older version. Now, if I look at the newer version, this is my 10.5 lab, and I have logged in to the provider portal as the system administrator. The first thing what we have introduced, or we had to introduce, was the new user roles. So if I take you to the roles section, make sure that whosoever wants to access the Content Hub must have the respective roles assigned to the user. Okay, so these are the new roles which we have in this version. One thing, since I'm in the roles section, remember one thing, that the Content Hub or the container application which we import, right, irrespective of from ALP or from Content Hub, we at the end deploy those applications in the container TKG container cluster, right? So just because we are here, make sure that the user who has to work with the container application and deploy them to Tanzu Kubernetes grid cluster, they also have the respective Kubernetes cluster roles assigned to them. Okay, because Content Hub roles and the Kubernetes TKG cluster view or manage roles work hand in hand. Yeah, sure. Now, makes sense. This is now, if you look here in the previous version, we did not have this tab under the provider portal, but now we have a new thing called Content Hub. As a provider administrator, you can configure the marketplace, and configuring the marketplace is the same as it was in ALP. You give a name, you give the URL and the token ID which you get from your CSP portal. I have already added a marketplace for this lab purpose. Now one thing you have to understand, the VMware marketplace can only be added by the system admin through the provider portal. Okay. And to add a Helm chart, you can either add a Helm chart as a provider admin, or you can also add a Helm chart as an organization admin. Why? Because you may want to add a Helm chart which is local to your organization. All right. So these two are the configuration you do in order to add a VMware marketplace or a Helm chart repository along with the user roles. Now, these all are the tasks which a provider admin should do. Rest all will happen from the tenant portal with the right set of roles assigned to the users. Now, I am in the tenant portal of the same environment, and the Content Hub tab is also available to the respective tenant. I'm logged in with a user
Mm-hmm.
which has basically a role of course, the Content Hub and all the TKG cluster roles, so that we can hand in hand show all the features and show how things function. Now, as a tenant, you have the option to only view the marketplace provided by the provider administrator. As a org admin or a user who has capability to add Helm chart, you can add a Helm chart which could be a local Helm chart repository. So for our lab purpose, I have added a Helm chart repository, and the experience is the same. You give the name, you give the URL, and we support anonymous authentication type only. Now, once you have added the Helm chart and once you have added the VMware marketplace, the next thing is you have to, of course, create a catalog. The concept of catalog remains the same. So I still need a catalog to store my my resources like your VM, media, and other stuff. So catalog concept still remains the same. So I already have a catalog called JKT catalog, and the concept is straightforward, where I click on new and you create a catalog. Again, for catalog creation, the user must have the catalog creation permissions. Now, so after this is the home landing page of the Content Hub as a tenant user. Now, for example, let's say if I click on the content section in the left-hand side, this is the place where I have all the new enhancements which we'll talk about. To add a resource from vCenter server or from an OVF or a OVA or adding a media remains the same. The concept is the same. To add a resource from vCenter, I'm sure all of you must know that the user must be a system admin, but they can import the resource from a vCenter server from the tenant portal, because only the system admin has access to the vCenter resources. So if you want to add any of the item, like say add from OVF or OVA or media, it is the same. Why we do not see import from vCenter server? Because only system admin has that capability. Now, if you look here, there's a new option called, or option displayed called, from VMware Marketplace or Helm chart repository. So this is the place where you actually can connect to your configured VMware Marketplace or Helm chart repository and start importing the resources. All right. Before we go into importing, I want to talk about these tabs. I'll come to the application images tab at a later stage. The VApp templates tab is the same as it was before, where you would see all the VApp templates listed, irrespective of version or no versions. Each version would have a separate entity or a separate entry. Yeah. Same way, Helm chart will also be listed as it was before, and also the media, right? Now, let's import let's import a Helm chart repository. The experience to import is the same as it was in App Launchpad. I will use my catalog, click next. Let's take a Helm chart repository. Click next. I will use the Helm chart I have configured. Click next, and let's see which all has. Okay, let's take this application, and I will take a older application. I'll tell you why I'm doing this, and I will also check the box to import this Helm chart. Now I will scroll at the bottom, click next. So it is importing to JKT catalog from this repository and using this marketplace, and this is the application with these versions. Okay.
Yeah.
Import. I know why. If it fails, no worries. I have the items to show what I was supposed to show. So imagine that for some reason this is failing, but imagine that the import has succeeded. So it is the same as it was in ALP. Now, in the Content Hub, right, there's an introduction for this new tab called Application Images. In this tab, right, you would see all of the items. Could be your virtual machine file, could be your virtual machine template, VApp template, your media, and or your container application templates. you can view this page in a list view or a grid view. And say, for example, assume that we have imported this container application. If you look here, it will say this is the application name and it has this version plus one version. So that's one method to know whether the imported application has number of versions downloaded or imported. Same thing, if you look in the list view, you will have the version number and the plus one to let you know that you have more versions. Now, what is new here? If I click on the details tab of the card, it will show all of the details which it has imported from the respective external source. So it have all of this. And if a preview is available for that application, it will show the screenshots and other stuff as well. And now you might ask me that, okay, now I have two versions for this, but I only see one entry in the application images tab. That's the beauty. In the front end, which is your application images, you will just see one entry for the application. To actually see the real images of different versions in the background, you have to click on the respective. So basically what you do is you get into the details of the container application or the container application, click on the respective tab. I'm seeing a Helm chart tab because this is a container application. I would see a VApp templates tab if it is a VM application. So this is where in the background, it will show me how many versions I have and what are the respective templates of each version. So if I look at it from the front end, let's look at in this view, it's a single entry. But if I enter inside, I have multiple entries. So this is the versioning we maintain.
And Jay, can you curate the preview like you used to be able to do in App Launchpad?
We can. I don't see that option here. So basically, it is a pull only thing, which if the respective source has the preview available, it will pull. If not, you cannot add it in the CD portal. So for example, I remember one of the applications I had, I think this one has a preview now. So basically preview is basically your snippets of the template of the application, right?
Just screenshots and stuff, but it's quite handy for providers to put instructions and things like that in there.
Let's see. No. Oh, like see this one? So this is what it pulls from the repository. Now, to maintain versioning, what I have to do is, let me get into the thing, into the respective application, and you see an actions tab. So let's say now at this time for this application, I have version 253 and 262. Let's say I want to add or remove version in the same listing. I can click on actions and say manage versions. So I can add, it will not show the version which is already imported. So let's say if I select this and say save, it will import that version. And let's say if I want to remove any version, it'll tell me which all versions are already imported. I can check and remove. Note that, let's say now this application has two versions, right? I'll try and remove both the versions. It will say, no, you cannot. You must at least have one version always available to be listed. I can do add version and remove version task at the same time. All right. So this is how we manage versions. And if you want, in case you want to launch, you can launch the application from here, or you have the launch button if it's a grid view, or you can launch it via the list view as well. Okay. Now, so now same experience you would see for a virtual machine application. Say for example, this is my VM application. I see a VApp templates tab instead of Helm chart tab. That's the only difference. The experience is the same. Now, when I import my container application, right, where do I use them? In my TKG cluster within VCD, correct? Now, with Content Hub, if you want to use any of the container app with an existing TKG cluster, okay, it is a must that you have to first install something called Kubernetes Operator in that cluster, TKG cluster.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one TKG cluster in which I have already installed the operator, but I'll tell you how to do that. So when you click on the Kubernetes Operator, only if you have the view and manage Kubernetes TKG cluster permission is when you would see these listed over here. Okay. So let's say I have one TKG cluster. I select the cluster and just click on install operator. It will happen unattended way in the background for you. Mm-hmm. So once you have that installed is when this TKG cluster will be listed at the time when you launch the container application to be deployed on.
Got it.
If you do not have this Kubernetes operator installed, this TKG cluster will not be listed when you're launching the container application. Okay. From the same window, you can also uninstall the Kubernetes operator, but that is a manual task. So they have given the set of commands to you to uninstall the commands to run. So you have to log into the cluster and run these commands manually. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, after the operator is installed, let's say, for example, I want to go ahead and launch this application. So I can click on the launch button. It will open the container application deployment window. I can give it a name.
Yeah, just a quick question on that operator. That's obviously a VCD operator, so VCD can connect to the Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah.
Can you put additional operators in there, like operators for GPUs?
Yes. Say, for example, you have the option to edit the operator and add your, if you have the option to import the commands and the the resources, you can do that and it will do that for you.
Oh, that's a really important point, because if you're connecting, let's say you've got GPU in the environment, you're doing some data science offerings.
Yeah.
If you download like some of the NVIDIA global catalog applications, for those to run properly, they need a GPU operator installed. And previously, we didn't have the ability to install a custom operator.
Right.
So this is really good.
Yeah. So edit operator does that job as well, where you can pull the registry and then you can add your additional operators to like you mentioned, to have the vGPU thing function very well on the Kubernetes cluster.
Okay, cool.
And to deploy or rather launch the application, if it is, let's say, for example, a VApp, when I click launch, it will ask me which version to select. Why it did not ask me right now? Because it's a single version. And select the version and it's the same experience as create a VApp template, nothing new. If it's a container application, click launch. It will ask you to give a name, select the version, because we have the option of multiple versions in this application, and now select the TKG cluster.
Yeah.
And then you can click launch application. It will work the same way as it was before. Nothing has changed.
What's in the advanced settings there? Is that just what's the advanced settings? Show advanced settings.
Okay, the advanced setting, you can basically let's wait for this. You can edit you can add some extra commands.
Edit the manifest, yeah.
Yeah, you can edit the manifest and do some whatever changes you want in case you want to that container at the time of deploying this application.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
So these things are available to you. Now, what else? If I go to the catalog section, it's the same experience as it was before. If I click on the catalog, I will still see the application images from here as well. I'll see VApp templates, but the section, Helm chart section, media and metadata. All right. So it's the same experience. The only new thing is application images. Now, last thing to discuss around this topic is the publishing of the catalog and subscription of the catalog. In 10.5, though I have multiple versioning, I see that as a single entity under application images, correct?
Yeah.
Let's say now if my publisher is 10.5, subscriber is 10.4. 10.4 does not understand this versioning of structured versioning. So what will happen? Let's say if my template has 3 versions, And if my subscriber is 10.4, it will see those 3 versions as each individual entity and sync them one by one. So if I look at the catalog on the 10.4 side, I would see 3 entries for the 3 versions. And if it is 10.5 to 10.5, the behavior is same as you see in 10.5 is what you would see in 10.5 subscriber side. So that's something you have to remember. And
that's pretty cool. So if you've got a multi VCD environment, different versions, and you upgrade 1 to 10.5, so basically it's not going to just take the latest and sync that across. It's actually going to take all the versions, but you don't get that nice kind of condensed view. Is that what what you're saying, basically?
Correct. So I'm just seeing my list. I think that's it from the container perspective. So as a provider, you have to assign the right set of user role, Helm chart if needed, and you have to configure the VMware Marketplace. Rest all will happen from the tenant portal. As a tenant user, make sure that the user has the right set of Content Hub role, Kubernetes cluster managing roles, and of course the catalog roles as well to add, remove catalog. So these things are something you have to take care, and then rest all is same except for the application images, how versioning is structured, the mechanism to add VMware Marketplace and Helm chart repository from within VCD without using App Launchpad, and this new look and feel where you can basically manage versioning, control versioning, remove, add versioning, and things like that. So in short, we have kind of got an App Launchpad within VCD without App Launchpad.
Yeah. So you wouldn't need App Launchpad in 10.5 because you've got all the functionality you need here.
So as of yet, there is no migration capability of App Launchpad data within VCD, but I'm sure VMware team is working on that, or they might have another plan to see how they can get ALP content into VCD database. So that's something we do not know when it will happen, but it's just an assumption that it might happen. But as of now, like Guy and I mentioned in the starting, App Launchpad will work as it is, Content Hub will work as it is, and both can work together within the same environment.
And just one more question to finish off with, Jay. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but obviously, when you're doing all these new permissions and setting up catalogs for customers, that's something that service providers would want to automate. This isn't available at the moment in Terraform, this functionality, but I'm guessing it's going to be in one of the sort of releases coming up.
Yes. So right now we do not have it. Automation of user and role permissions is still something we do not have. The only best method is create one user and just replicate that user. It's a manual process. There's no automation as yet to answer your question.
Yeah, okay. It's not necessarily the user, it's the roles they've got. As we look at onboarding new customers, we kind of need to obviously try and avoid using local users like we're supposed to, but try and get the permissions automated.
Oh no, that's still something we do not have, but it's,
I'll take it up with the Terraform team.
It's a good thing to take it up with the engineering team and ask them if this is, because like we mentioned, right, we would not support local users sooner. So everything would happen through an LDAP or any OAuth user. So you may want to have automatically replicate the roles as needed. Yeah, something we can pick it up with the engineering. Yeah,
definitely. Okay, mate, that's really cool. Thank you very much for showing us all the new Content Hub. I think that's pretty cool. I'm pleased to see the progress here, and generally, I think we're kind of moving away from having all of these extensions into delivering the services as one kind of thing in VCD, which is nice to see.
Just making life easier, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. All right, buddy. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.